All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here and just start giving a little bit of information on Reclaim Community, what that is, and basically how you can help. So let me pull up my sheet here, and as people join us, hopefully we won't have any technical difficulties. So first thing I want to kind of talk about is basically who Reclaim Community is. And there's a little bit of info on this on our website, but obviously it encompasses a lot more than what we have on there. We are an organization that has a mission to solve environmental and economic problems by mobilizing a community to reuse its cultural assets. In order to do that, we preserve our historic buildings and we invest in what we already have, and that creates opportunities for entrepreneurs, artists, and other creators and tradespeople. And we believe in using and restoring places that tell the stories of the past in order to show us the possibilities of the future. So what we do is basically economic revitalization work, and we do that through community engagement, volunteer labor, incremental investment, organizing action teams, and using sustainable adaptive reuse of historic buildings to drive that. And this is all designed to, and based on a lot of research and historic preservation and how much of a community revitalization tool it is really what brings investment back to communities that have been lacking it for a really long time. And there is a wealth of research on it if you look through the historic preservation research of place economics, as well as the Historic Trust, National Trust for Historic Preservation. And we have a fact sheet that I actually will be uploading to our website eventually, but it has a ton of data on preservation and why it's so important. And I'll just give you a couple highlights just to give you an idea, but just know that this has been researched for 40 plus years, and there is a lot of solid evidence for it. So dollar for dollar preservation and renovation is one of the highest job generating economic development options you can use. Reusing existing buildings, whether they're commercial or homes, is good for the economy, it's good for the community, and it's good for the environment. If you're a wise community, you will reinvest in your existing building stock because you've already invested in it years ago, and you can maximize the return if you continue to invest in it over the years and not have to build from scratch. New construction is really expensive. So Historic Rehab has a 32-year track record of creating 2 million jobs, generating $90 billion in private investment. It creates more jobs than the same amount of new construction. And that's really critical. In South Dakota, where I live, every $1 million invested in historical rehab creates 17 more jobs than $1 million invested in growing agricultural products, and that is what our state's known for. Studies show that residential rehab creates 50% more jobs than new construction. On average nationwide, the research says that $1 million spent on historic rehab versus $1 million on new construction will generate these kind of outcomes. 120,000 more will stay in the community. 5 to 9 more construction jobs will be created. 4.7, so 4 to 5 more new jobs will be created in other places in the community. And household incomes in that community increase $107,000 more than new construction. Retail sales in that community increase $142,000, which is $34,000 more than new construction. One of my favorite quotes about this is from Donovan Ripkema of Place Economics, who has spent a lot of time, and he's actually from Vermillion, South Dakota. He's spent decades researching this stuff and how it helps economies and towns of every size. And he says that we don't advocate for historic preservation with that as an end. We argue for it as a means to a lot of things, including economic impact. And that manifests itself in greater labor intensity, means more local jobs. It means a difference in property value appreciation, more money in the pockets of homeowners. It means a central role in downtown revitalization, which is a lower level of foreclosure patterns in historic districts. Incubator for small and startup businesses. There's just a whole range of contributions historic buildings make. What creates that economic increment, the preservation premium, is not really individual buildings, but in neighborhoods and whole downtown districts where the context of historical sources is saved. And then there becomes like a confidence of investing there, opening a business there, shopping there. So it's actually the entire context that is benefiting. It is 99 times out of 100 when you hear like that these are so expensive to do. The problem is that you have an architect or general contractor or both who have not done a lot of preservation before. So experience really makes it more cost effective. So working with people who are experienced architects and contractors and engineers that are experienced in historic preservation, because these buildings need to be treated differently than modern construction. And a lot of the problems we see with our buildings we're preserving are because, 20, 30, 40 years ago, new building renovation techniques were used in them, and that does not allow them to really be, it does not allow them to breathe, and it does not allow them to have the longer lifespan, which is like 50 to 80 years in an appropriate renovation. An average modern building that's constructed today is only going to last about 30 to 40 years before it needs to be either majorly renovated or replaced and demolished. So in all of those ways, investing in the old stuff is actually a much better return on your investment. 75% of the economic benefits stay in the community when you do historic preservation versus new construction. 15 to 25%, or $15 to $25 a private investment comes for every $1 of public investment nationwide. So that is a massive return on investment. We use existing public investments in infrastructure, markets for new commercial development, revenue from tourism. The way I like to describe it to people is, for example, if you have an old building and you, like the historic Jasper School that we started out saving in 2015, you could it would cost close to $1 million to tear that building down, and that's what a lot of people would say is the easiest, more convenient, the thing to do. And my argument is, when you can purchase a building like that for just a couple, tens of thousands of dollars, like we did, and you have a building that's replacement value by insurance has been deemed about 30 to 35 million, what that tells me is that a $25,000 investment to purchase that is a much better investment, because even if you have to add investment numbers of like 5 or even 10 million, you have a building that's going to be worth upwards of 20 million when you're done, if you go by real estate valuations in the local Sioux Falls area and in the region. And so what I ask people is, if you take $1 million and you invested in that building to tear it down, in a small town like Jasper, who's going to spend $1 million to buy that land that was sitting on with nothing on it? And that would be a really hard sell. So you're going to put $1 million into it and have a dirt lot left. So that's one of the arguments I use to try and explain to people why we are looking at the long-term investment. We're not looking at convenience tomorrow and how we just knock down an old building, it's out of the way, it's not an eyesore, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But we just lost millions of dollars of potential investment and opportunity for our community. So really, we also poured a bunch of more waste into landfill, which taxpayers are going to fund. So there's a lot of reasons, and so I will post that link to that fact sheet that we created based on a lot of national research. So that's just a little bit of the why, because I think it's important to understand the why before you can really get behind the mission and how. So right now, where we are as Reclaim Community, I like to say the greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. So 5 years after buying the Jasper School, the spring of 2016, we were able to raise about $40,000 in about 6 weeks to do that, and we had a group of volunteers that they dedicated a lot of time. So what we first did was work to get it on the National Register, and it was some grants through the Historical Society with the Legacy Grant Program in Minnesota, and we were able to hire some consultants to do historical research and create a 70-plus page document about this building. And so that National Register designation was approved in 2019. So we are currently right in the process, and we got a second grant about a year ago for about $75,000, and that was for a historic structure report. And what that is basically a massive construction planning document. So it's on the national level, it's kind of the gold standard of a preservation project. And so we are going to assess the mechanics, the structure, the roof, everything involved with the actual structure of the building, and figure out how we're going to renovate it, what historic materials need to be preserved, how we do it appropriately to save the historic integrity, and how we do it affordably, and what are the priorities. And so then from there, the next step is going to be the working drawings, blueprints of the new construction. So this is just like any other project that you would do in your own house. You do the planning, what you want to do, you create the blueprints, and then you go for financing. And so we are going to be using a lot of grants, but that grant timeline does take some time. It's usually about a 7-year process from the time you get a building on the National Register to when you actually apply for construction funds. And we're about 5 years into it. So, but we're actually only, 3 years into having the building on the National Register. So we still have a few years before we potentially are able to get a construction grant done. So in the meantime, we are just fundraising for maintenance of the building and all of building our organization so that we can appropriately manage that project as we get to that point. The second building that we actually have, we bought in 2018 in December, Bauman Hall. It is a building that is connected to the school in basically its meaning and its importance to the community, because it did serve as sort of a performance hall, a place where they had graduations and school plays, all kinds of community concerts, and pretty much everything that went on in Jasper from about 1908 to 1939 was done at Bauman Hall. And so that building we purchased because it was in danger of demolition, and bought it at tax forfeiture auction, and the structural issues with it had been known for about a decade. So we purchased it where the city had sold it to a private person who was not able to complete his renovation plans, and then it ended up back on tax forfeiture. So we purchased that, and then we were able to get a grant. It's already on the National Register thanks to the Historical Society in Jasper, which did that in the 1980s and actually did a construction project on a different section of the wall that was having issues back then. And so now we are rebuilding a part of another different area of the wall. And a lot of that was because when they did it in the 1980s, they renovated the bottom floor, but they did not renovate the top floor, and they did not put in enough trusses to be able to support what is code. And so the weight of the trusses on top of moisture buildup when you have a building that has not had appropriate climate control kind of led to this progression. And so we scooped it up to try and save it. And right now we had got a successful $10,000 conditions assessment grant 2 years ago, and we completed that. And today we are just about to close out our working drawings, architectural plans for our repairs. And so this summer in July, we will be submitting a pre-application for the legacy grant funds to the tune of about $200,000 to correct the structural damage on the east wall, where there's a section of stones that was buckling, and actually some of about dozen to 2 dozen stones have actually fallen since last winter. So definitely shoring plan was a big part of that. We are starting to implement our shoring design that was given to us by the architects to make sure that we are accurately supporting that structure, to make sure that's safe for the community and that we don't lose any stones. Pretty soon we will be working on actually taking down some of those stones as a precaution, so that when we get funds to rebuild, hopefully next spring, if we're successful with our grant, that we can do that. So that's kind of a little tidbit of where we are, but it's actually more than those 2 buildings. So I want to just spend a few minutes talking about what this means for revitalization of a community like Jasper. So why do we do it? The community revitalization of the whole town is the goal, and we want to help everybody in town be successful as a community. And these buildings are a critical tool because it's important in placemaking and what makes people connect to their place that they're from or where they live. And it's an incremental approach, which means it's investing small amounts of money and effort, and then the accumulation of those efforts over a long period of time is what really makes the big transformation. So a lot of people have this idea that we need this really big project with a lot of money, and it has to be really flashy and fancy and big, and it's actually not the case. A lot of those projects are actually way too expensive and get your community way too far into debt, and they don't often pan out to the results as much as the incremental investment. So revitalization requires investing in what you have. And I like to ask the community, or people around me, when I talk to this about, is what do you want to see change about Jasper, or about Rock County, or Pipestone County, or this region around Sioux Falls and the Sioux Port site, in southwestern Minnesota, southeastern South Dakota. All of these communities are built off of a lot of this connection that we have to the region. What's unique about our region, one of the big things is Sioux Port site, among several other things. So people come here to visit it, and we might not think it's a big deal because we live here and we see it all the time, but that doesn't mean that it's not important, and that we shouldn't try and look at it from the eyes of people who are coming to our town and our community and experiencing all the things that they've never seen before. Talking about the history of the architecture and the craftsmen that actually constructed these buildings. It's a really significant period in history, and the trades and the craftsmen that were around the turn of the century and after, that did so much work that is at a level that we don't really see today, and the building materials that were used are far higher quality than we see today as well. So in our work, I have found that we have created this platform through Reclaim Community where we are starting to make outreach and get information out to the wider community. We're starting to talk about some of these things to help other communities see the potential in their community. And so with my platform, what I want to do is really listen to the community and see what is it that they want. Whether you're from the region, you're from Jasper, but you don't live there anymore, or you moved to Jasper or Pipestone or Rock County, what do you want to see happen? What would help you make your life better? Would it be more, entertainment? Would it be opportunities for arts and culture? Would it be business incubation and more support for small business owners, more funding? Whatever it is, we want to listen, and we want to see if we can use our platform as an organization to help that, because what we are doing is going to impact that and vice versa. So we are trying to figure it out. And the way we look at it is, when we see a problem like a big old building that no one knows what to do with, instead of just kind of shrugging our shoulders and going, what do we do? I don't know. It's really just trying something that is founded in a lot of research, and also figuring out, like, not waiting for someone else to solve it, I guess, but just jumping in and trying to solve these problems ourselves. And so being very resilient and very flexible is really important in this kind of work. So one of my sister likes to say, if you open your mouth to complain about something, did you also lift your hands to help? And that's kind of what our motto is, or our ethos. And all the people who work with our organization are usually those kind of people who are like not going to worry about what they think should have been done or somebody else did or whatever. It's about what can we do now and how can we change things for the better. So a few of the things that I like to point out about revitalization, and not just historic buildings, but just in general for communities, is you have to connect it to pride of place. And one of the things that people have is a lot of pride in the place they came from, the buildings that were there, the businesses that were there, and the people. It's really about the people who lived in that community, worked at those businesses, cared about those buildings, built those buildings or owned them, and your memories of them. And that is really important in a community, and because multiple people over multiple generations experiencing the same places is what gives us a shared sense of community and caring about the community. So pride of place is really important, and we need to work on fostering pride of Rock County and Pipestone County and Jasper as much as we can, and pride in the whole region around this soup court site, which is a really unique feature. Little things matter, and it draws more people. So even the little events we have, like the little classic car cruising, or the meals we have, or the drive-through meals, the 0.5K race, all those things are designed to give people something fun to do and enjoy together and work on together, but also just bring people to town and have people invest a little time and money in the community that maybe they're not used to coming to. That helps all of the businesses and people in town, and it draws more people. And we don't want to focus on the big stuff, like the big projects and the big dollars. We want to focus on little things, because that in turn is going to create the momentum. Small changes over a long period of time make the biggest impact. So things like, if you watch the TV show that was done last year called Hometown, they have a new series called Hometown Takeover. And last year they put a call out to nationwide to get about 5,000, and they got about 5,000 submissions to be chosen as a community of under 40,000 to have them come and revitalize a number of places in your town, from residences to businesses and historic districts. And so there's a lot of great information on that, especially if you watch the very last behind the scenes footage of that. And I would encourage you to do so, because it has a lot of valuable information. Things like painting front doors of houses, or painting storefronts that have been, are looking kind of run down, tearing boarded up windows, or painting on the boarded up windows, murals, or putting up fun posters or things to get people excited and interested. Putting up parklets, putting in flowers or planters, all these little things that can make a huge difference in the community when you start to implement them. So let's focus on making a small area of, like, our park or of our school a little bit better. Even though we can't do the whole project, we can actually impact the community before that. So that is what we're doing. And how are we doing this? Well, I wanted to tell you guys about a bunch of ideas and opportunities we have to help us and move this forward. And one of the biggest things we have thought is, before we have these buildings in a safe and rehabilitated position to occupy, we need to use these grounds and the power that we have to bring people in the community and benefit everybody. So recreation, entertainment, community connections, building relationships, things like our food forest, which we just began installing this year, and it's going to be about a 3-year process. A public garden with community garden plots and lots of native and edible plants. So we're going to develop it over the next few years, but it will honor the environment, the native plants and grasses that are normally found here, a lot of edible plants that the community can come and pick and use, and also encourage the idea of sustainability and how can we work in our region to have more sustainable agriculture and support the entrepreneurship of small farmers, and kind of get away from that food desert where a lot of rural communities don't have a grocery store. People have to drive a half an hour to get a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and a wider array of foods. Why don't we start talking about how much of it we can start producing in the community? So that's one of our things. If you're interested in that, I would encourage you to sign up and help with that, gardening or any kind of interest in learning about it. One of the other things that we would like to see happen is using our buildings and our spaces for arts in the community, whether it's painting murals on the outsides of buildings or on the windows at our buildings, whether it's putting up theater displays in the backyard or having musicians come and perform for like a vendor fair or a garden party. We want to have spaces for people in the community who are doing things to present their art to the community. Eventually, that we hope that translates into using the gymnasium and auditorium as a community space where we can have concerts and weddings and galas and plays and all kinds of things that can bring people in. So really, we have several other things that we're hoping to do, some pop-up parklet ideas down on Main Street, having some improvements done on some of the buildings, helping building owners and business owners downtown to help improve their facades. There's a lot of future plans we have, but what we really need right now is we need investment from supporters and members who can donate their either financially or time to us and help us advance these ideas and also gain a lot of experience in the process. And then secondly, what we really want is the volunteers, especially on that side. There's a few particular avenues that we are really struggling with right now, as far as like just not having enough hands to help us with and that we could help. So if you are listening to this and you have a heart for preservation or architecture or community building or whatever it is, environmentalism, I would encourage you to, if you have the time, to give a little bit. You don't even have to be local from Jasper. We can use a lot of support virtually and doing some of these projects for like researching, reaching out to people. A lot of that can be done at home where you are. So here is a just short list of a few things that we need. Right now, we need help with like the kind of the human resources part of building an organization. Helping to manage our committees, our board meetings, making things very organized, contacting people to donate or volunteer, keeping people notified about upcoming opportunities, sending out emails, those kinds of things. Let's see, managing teams or forces that we create on issues. The second area that we really need some more help in is research. So that could be things like historical information, because we are really trying to support the Jasper Historical Society in Rock County, in Pipestone County, in advocating for more knowledge about the history of our region. And that includes Quartzsite, that includes a lot of the businesses, that includes the farming community, all of those things. And so the history of Quartzsite, architecture, photos, collecting written and oral histories, those are all things that we have some need for people helping with that. Grants, that would be another big one. Right now I'm doing a lot of the grant writing, but we could use a few more people to be looking up organizations, finding resources for other grants, opportunities, endowments, things like that, and applying for funding from businesses. Say like Thrivent Financial always has a really great action team program where you can apply for dollars. Places like Excel Energy or Walmart, some of these large companies in our region that have the money to give, but it's going to take some hands to manage all of those potential opportunities to go and just fill out the paperwork and submit that for our behalf. So we need a team who's working on that. So a few more people would be great. Thirdly, marketing. One of the biggest things we need to grow our organization to the next level is going to be marketing. Things like flyers, logo design, branding, helping with merchandise and fundraising tools, things like that, designing press releases, media blasts, all of that stuff, planning our marketing campaigns and all the materials. If you have a talent for that and you feel like our organization fits a lot of what you would like to give back to, we would encourage you to sign up on our volunteer link on our website and join us with that. If you have some of those skills, we would really appreciate it. A couple of the last sections, we have event planning, fundraisers, we do silent auctions, we do meals, we do the classic car cruising, a 0.5K race for the lazy with donuts and beer. We try and do a lot of fun things, but we need more volunteers to really be able to effectively do it and on a larger scale. If you are interested in seeing farmers markets, craft fairs, music festivals, those are all things that we are kind of marinating on how we can start incorporating, and we would love you to help us. The other big thing is anyone who has support, knowledge, experience, or equipment and related to trades and contracting. So we have a building maintenance team led by Terry Skyberg, which is one of our most well-known local community members who has donated so much of his time and energy to the community. And we've had several other people jump in to help. And I really would love to see more of that. There's a few people doing a lot, but I think if we had another 5 or 6 or 10 hands, it would make our work be so much faster and easier. And, everybody then can share in that success with us. We are working on things like hosting classes for renovating historic properties, like restoring windows, which we're going to need to do on Baumit Hall in the school probably in the future. Things like plaster repair, all kinds of things that you could learn about your own house or your commercial building that you own. We're looking for people to join on salvage crews, hands-on building maintenance or construction, repairs, or maybe even loaning us just the use of some tools or machinery occasionally. That would be a really huge help. And the last way that you can help is by being our biggest cheerleader. And that doesn't cost you a thing, just a few minutes of your time occasionally. Follow us on Facebook, sign up for our newsletter notifications, check our blog regularly, and just share what we do with everybody, because you never know who you know that might be interested or might have a connection to this region and care. So Instagram, Facebook ads, sharing our events, working on TikTok or YouTube videos. If you have videography, photography knowledge, we would love to have you help us out and maybe work on some way where we can boost your professional business or your experience, but also benefit a little bit ourselves, so we can create a win-win for people who are supporting us and helping us. And eventually, as our organization grows and we have a larger base of support, we're definitely going to be looking for positions to be able to afford to hire some of this work done. So, but in the short term, we definitely need some volunteer hands to pitch in and help us out until we get to that level. In closing, the most important thing that we're trying to work on right now is getting ready for Courtsider Days, which is going to be July 9th through the 11th. We're going to have events from our organization held on the 9th and the 10th. So first of all, on Friday the 9th, we're going to have a classic car cruise-in from 5 to 8 on Main Street. We will probably be serving out of Baumit Hall, the Memorial Hall, not Baumit Hall. And we will, we've done it several years in the past. I think this is year number 4. So we'll have, all classic car clubs invited. There is no registration needed, no fee or anything. Just show up with your cool classic vehicle. And then we will have a meal. Looks like it's going to be burgers, brats, beans. I'm trying to think what else. There's something else. And root beer floats. There's something else I can't remember. And then, so hopefully we are also looking for some potential music or DJ for that. And so if you have an interest in helping us with that, reach out to us. And then on Saturday, we're going to be having a vendor fair. So if you are a farmer's market vendor, if you have craft supplies, if you have other products to sell and you would like to be a part of our vendor fair, we have a sign up that we are going to be adding to our Facebook page shortly and on our website. So you can click the link for that and then sign up to get our information about how to sign up for the vendor fair. I think booth spaces are going to be like $20 or $25. I have to look back at my records, so don't quote me on that. But right now, it's probably going to happen downtown along the streets in downtown Jasper. But pending, it potentially could change to the city park. So it just depends on what Courtsider Day has going on and where it works the best. So those are, and then that morning at 10 o'clock will be registration. 10:30 will be our 0.5K race. And so we're looking for sponsors for that race. We'll be having t-shirts, some kind of medal for participants, and you get the opportunity to eat some great Edgerton Bakery donuts probably, which is what we've had in the past, and get some tokens for root beer or beer soda later on in the day from the bar. And so that's kind of what we're working on. If anybody has any ideas for that, we would like to do a costume contest, and we'd like to set up some obstacles around. And so if you would like to be part of that, it's a really fun time, and I would encourage you to, again, contact us through our volunteer link either on Facebook or send us a volunteer link on our website, reclaimcommunity.org, or on Facebook. Sorry about that. I gotta call it for some reason. Okay. So lastly, so that's what's coming up in July. We do have some other potential fundraiser ideas for this fall, and we would love to talk to you more about that if you're interested. We will be having a few more of these info sessions and where you can jump on and ask questions. I'm always willing to meet or have phone conversation if you have questions. And lastly, I just want to kind of encourage you again to watch Hometown Takeover and pay attention to the things that they implement and how real tangible change change happens in increments, and it happens when a community comes together. So real life things that we can do together, like murals, cleaning up storefronts, having fun activities for the community, brightening up everybody's life a little bit in town would be a way to start. And I want you to think about, as you're thinking about this, what makes the town, the region unique. Embrace our history, and let's find the great places to gather in our community and find the assets that we have, and let's just make the most of them. Um, Old buildings like the ones we were trying to save are assets. They are not liabilities. They are opportunities for future investment. They're opportunities for future businesses. They're opportunities for tax revenue. They're opportunities for enjoyment, entertainment, all kinds of things. So that is the best return on investment, and that's what we're trying to drive. So wherever the culture and traditions are passed on, and what makes our community different and unique is what we need to make big. We need to make sure everybody knows about it, celebrate it, and capitalize on it. So in closing, I will just say, one of the things that I took away from the hometown takeover philosophy, who I know those Aaron and Ben, who are part of that show, share a lot of the same perception that I have, is that small towns cannot afford to not celebrate every asset they have. We have to celebrate what makes us different and unique, and that really in Jasper and in this region is Sioux Quartzite and the architecture that these skilled stonecutters from the early 1900s, displayed. And so, if the buildings are gone, those are lost, and we need to preserve them, not only just for more people to enjoy, but just for the history and the significance of what those people did. So, in closing, if you have any questions about it, please go to our website, reclaimcommunity.org. Check out the blog. That's where we put a lot of the most recent information. We try to be very active on Facebook. We're always willing to answer questions. We throw up all our events there. And if you have other ideas or resources, we would love to do more YouTube videos and stuff. And so that's something that I'm looking for some help with. But will also say, let's see, I just had a thought in my head and I lost it. But anyway, get in touch with us. Let us know how we can help. Look for more of our informational sessions. Invite your friends and family to them. And let's try and just do the best we can for our communities and make things better one day at a time. And I like to tell people, this is a massive project in Jasper, and people ask us why. And I always say, why not? There's a lot of places where they have a lot of investment and a lot of help and support, and this is one place that doesn't and needs it. So let's just try and do some big, great things together. And I hope you're excited about it. And I hope that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of. So I encourage you to join us and send us a message. Let us know. And I guess until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for attending.